Well, good evening, everybody. I really appreciate everybody swimming out tonight and being here. It's been wild 24 hours or so, hasn't it? And I know that being here tonight requires some real effort on your part and perhaps some risk even being out like we are. But I'm really grateful that you're here and in such a short time have really come to admire and appreciate this group of people. You have something special here. You can tell that right away. And your affection for one another is contagious. So I'm just thrilled to get to be a part this week. John Ortberg made the statement that anytime you see life flourishing, it's because it's receiving nourishment from outside itself. Think about that. Anytime you see life flourishing, you know that that thing that is flourishing is receiving the source, the resources for its life, for its flourishing from something outside of itself. So the question tonight is, what are you relying on for your nourishment, for your flourishing? What is it that you are tapped into, drawing from so that you can be flourishing and fruitful? If you're just relying on yourself, you've got a pretty limited supply. And we need to be careful of what it is that we are drawing from. And Jeremiah warns us about drawing our source and sourcing our strength and our nourishment from the wrong kinds of places. In Jeremiah chapter 17, verses 5 and 6, it says, "This is what the Lord says, cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh, whose heart turns away from the Lord. That person will be like a bush in the wastelands. They will not see prosperity when it comes. They will dwell in the parched places of the desert in a salt land where no one lives." It's pretty clear that Jeremiah has for his stock imagery, that the thing that's on his mind is that land in southern Judea. If you've ever been there, you know what it's like. If you've not, you've probably seen pictures. It is like a barren wasteland, and especially down in the Dead Sea region where there is salt everywhere. It's hot and it's dry, and it's extremely rare for it to rain. But on the rare occasions when it does rain, certain plants or bushes will sprout up for a little while in that rocky soil, but then when the moisture of the mud pit that it had happened to be close enough to spring up from dries up, and it lacks the root necessary to draw the moisture, the life-giving water that it needs, then that plant just withers and dies. It does not prosper. It does not flourish. But then he tells us in chapter 17, in the next two verses 7 and 8, but blessed. So we've seen the man who is cursed, who's relying upon mere man, who is looking to his own flesh as the sustaining influence in his life, is contrasted with the blessed one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its root by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. It's clear that he's got in mind here the poetry of Psalm 1, but he also perhaps has in mind, a lot of scholars think that he has in mind the place known as Gan Hashlasha. I think I pronounced it right. If you say it with confidence, nobody will second guess you. This is a place down in this same region. It's in southern Judea where everything is parched and barren and dry. And yet there's this place where these springs that come from a hidden source. This isn't from runoff, it's not from the occasional rains, but there are springs that somehow reach all the way back up into the mountains, that underground work their way and then surface in this beautiful sort of emerald green blue pools, and there's even a few little waterfalls associated with it. And of course, all around it are these flourishing trees and plants that are just green all the year round. So they're fed from a hidden source, from a secret source to produce this oasis. There are even some rabbinical traditions that believe that this was the Garden of Eden. That's how beautiful and flourishing the place is. You know, Western civilization is kind of like the Judean desert, I think. It's like it's drying up in so many ways, so many cultural and spiritual issues that are taking place and turning it into a wasteland. But what I want for you and what I want for me is surrounded in this barren land for us in our spirits and in our lives to look like this. For that to be what comes to our mind, the thing that Jeremiah describes in verses 7 and 8 in the context, the larger context of verses 5 and 6. I want us to look like that in the middle of a wasteland. Like that oasis, there is a secret place where you and I can receive the nourishment that we need from a source that never runs dry, from an infinite reservoir of grace and mercy and goodness and truth and beauty that we can tap into and always have at the ready the resources that we need to be flourishing in a dry and desert land. And so the secret place that I'm speaking of is not a place that's difficult to find. But it is a place that very few people seem to ever locate. And there's a reason for that. I am thoroughly convinced that Satan's number one tactic, maybe not his ultimate goal, but his number one tactic in the spiritual warfare is to stop you from getting to this secret place. He doesn't care how he does it, and it might be just silly distractions, like the things that are on our phones all of the time. It may be some sort of sin or guilt that is causing you to pull out of not being in this secret place. Or it might just be overwork, like we talked about last night. The particulars don't really matter as long as the end is accomplished. And that is, he wants to separate God's people from the place of power and of deliverance and salvation and confidence and security that we can find in this secret place. He does not want us anywhere near the place where grace and mercy and forgiveness can nourish our souls in a dry and thirsty land. He doesn't want us anywhere near the place where we can get in the presence of God, the secret place where identity is revealed, where God's purpose for our life becomes manifest to us in the prayers that we are praying to God as we search our souls and we search the circumstances in which we find ourselves, and God pulls us out of that secret place and forward into the public sphere where we can begin to work forth our calling and purpose in life. Satan does not want us to get there, and he will do anything to keep us from getting there. Because he knows, as Psalm 91 verse 1 says in the King James Version, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. He doesn't want you there. But I want to ask you tonight, do you want to be there? Do you want to find the place near to the heart of God? Do you want to resort regularly to the secret place where you can draw from the springs of salvation and you can be refreshed and renewed and strengthened to flourish in the desert land? I want to tell you tonight that you need to get to the secret place. Of all things on our to-do list, getting to the secret place needs to be at the top of the priority list. And we need to find out if that's not what's going on regularly in your life, if that is not part of the regular practice in your life, you need to find out what it is that the enemy is doing to prevent that from happening. Whatever it is that he's putting in the place to block you from being able to do that, and you need to run that roadblock. You need to find a way to get to the secret place. Jesus shows us the way. He is the way, and he shows us the way. In Mark chapter 1, and beginning in verse 35, it says, very early in the morning, and that's right there's a problem for a lot of us, isn't it? Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him. So I first just want to make mention of the fact, or just draw our attention to the fact that this is what Jesus was doing. He was getting up, whatever it took, in order to find the secret place, in order to get into the presence of the Father. He was willing to do that, getting up before everyone else in order to have that time alone in the presence of the Lord. And then when Peter and the others wake up and there's no Jesus to be found, they go out and look for him. And it says when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else to the nearby villages so I can preach there also. That is why I've come." Now think about this scene a little bit. Apparently, wherever they're at this particular time, things are going pretty well. People are looking for Jesus. The ministry is going along well. Peter's very concerned about the ministry of Jesus continuing to prosper and go well. And when Peter wakes up and Jesus isn't there, he's concerned about what this means. So when he finally finds Jesus out in the secret place, Jesus surprises Peter, who hasn't been in the secret place, by telling him, no, we're not staying here where things are going really well. We're going somewhere else. We're going to start over in another place. Because he says, that's what I've come for. I'm not come to just settle down and become comfortable and easy in a place that things are going well at. I've come to keep on pressing forth the borders and boundaries of God's kingdom and making his will and his way known throughout the land. How did Jesus come to have a different set of priorities about what his ministry should look like than Peter? I can't help but think that one of the reasons for that is because Jesus has been in the secret place. Jesus has come to have an understanding of his purpose, to appreciate the calling that is on his life, to know what the next step strategically that he needs to take is, because getting up before everybody else, he was in prayer with the Father, sorting things out. Not waking up in the morning confused and wondering what the day is going to bring. He's in the presence of the Father, working things out and figuring out what the next step is supposed to be. And so he says, I know who I am, I know what I'm here for, and I know what we need to be doing next. And so we're going to leave and go forth because that's what I came to do. And then it says, so he traveled through Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. Just amazing to think about what the ministry of Jesus actually looked like. Preaching the good news of the gospel of the kingdom and driving out the demons. It's kind of a spooky and just weird thing to think of just how demon oppressed the people of God were at the time that Jesus showed up. And I don't know that kind of demon oppression exists in people's lives today, but I still believe in some way or another, people can still be oppressed by the devil. And I wonder sometimes if our inability to drive out the powers of darkness in people's lives, in our own lives, in family dynamics, in congregational issues, and the issues that are taking place on a broader scale in the world, if these entrenched forces of evil and darkness are immovable to us, is because we don't spend time in the secret place where we get power for the public place. But Jesus did, and in Jesus' ministry, the good news was proclaimed, and demons and darkness fled in his presence. We need to get to the same kinds of places that Jesus got to. In Luke chapter 5, verses 15 and 16, yet the news about him spread all the more so that crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sickness. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Again, this ties in with what we were talking about last night. We get busy, things are going well, we're addicted to productivity and to results, and we see it happening, but Jesus was aware, even as the Son of God incarnate in this world, he was aware that in the flesh he had limited resources and that he needed to withdraw from the activity, from the work that he was doing. Even though things are going great, he needed to withdraw to lonely places to get reconnected with the Father. That if he relied simply on his own strength, of his own independent nature, that he was going to wither and dry and not be the flourishing plant that was necessary to do the job that he was sent to do. In Matthew chapter 14, verse 23, it says that after he dismissed them, he went up on a mountain by himself to pray. And later that night, he was there alone. And on one of those days, we're told in Luke chapter 6 that Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles. You ever had a big day that you had huge decisions to make? That were just decisions that were going to have implications that would continue to resonate for days, weeks, months, years, maybe decades to come. And if you're like me, your first instinct on that is, I gotta get a good night's sleep. And sleep is important. There's very few things at 56 years old that are gonna get in the way of me sleeping. But Jesus had the priority that there was this huge decision that was before him. The ramifications of that decision, I suppose, are still being felt by us today in this room. And in the sense of significance and importance of this decision, Jesus knew he had to find the secret place. He had to get alone with the Father and to be there in his presence throughout the night so that the decisions he would make would be the decisions that honored the Father, that were in accordance with the Father's will, and that he wouldn't be acting on some lower or lesser impulse. In Matthew chapter 26, in verse 36, it says that Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And he took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." He's asking them to be watchful in prayer as he also is in prayer. Jesus begins to experience already the trauma of what is before him. And as he faces this, it says that he was overwhelmed by it. And the thing that he needed most to do in that situation was to pray. And he wanted his closest companions to be watchful in prayer as well. And as he goes a little further, it says that he fell with his face to the ground and prayed. Imagine the scene. We know what happens. His three friends fall asleep repeatedly as Jesus 3 times goes and repeats this prayer, finding in that the strength that he would need to face the future. I love the quote by Hayden Robinson on this passage. I want you to listen carefully. It's a lengthy quote, but it's worth it. It says, Where was it that Jesus sweat great drops of blood? Not in Pilate's hall, not on his way to Golgotha. It was in the Garden of Gethsemane, There he offered up prayers and petitions with loud cries and tears to the one who could save him from death. Had I been there and witnessed that struggle, I would have worried about the future. If he is so broken up when all he's doing is praying, I might have said, what will he do when he faces real crisis? Why can't he approach the ordeal with the calm confidence of his 3 sleeping friends? Yet when the test came, Jesus walked to the cross with courage, and his 3 friends fell apart and fell away. Powerful. You know, it really does seem to be the case that this is where the battle was fought for Jesus. It's just astonishing the forthrightness and courage with which he rises from this time of difficulty in prayer when the soldiers come out to arrest him. The composure that he had in that moment as he confronts them, asking them, whom are you seeking? And his concern for the disciples that they not be taken with him, and even his healing of the high priest servant's ear, and is willfully being taken into their hand and marched to a series of trials in which he is mocked and beaten and then ultimately condemned to die on the cross. And in none of that do you see even the slightest hint of him thinking of going back on his commitment. It's right here in the Garden of Gethsemane where the real battle seems to have been fought. As Jesus wrestles with the calling that he knows rests on his life. And it's in this earnest struggle, as he points out here, quoting Hebrews, with loud cries and tears, sweating, as it were, drops of blood, in intense agony of sorrow, even to the point of death. This is killing me, he's telling his disciples. But in all of that wrestling, Jesus finally comes to the place of courage and clarity of his calling and his destiny to stand up and face the most arduous and painful and humiliating and torturous set of circumstances that any human being has ever faced. He found the power to stand powerfully in public and accomplish the defeat of death, sin, and the grave through his wrestlings in prayer in the secret place. If Jesus needed to go there, how much more do you and I? The bottom line is that Jesus wrestled for peace in private, which gave him power in public. And if we want to have the power that Jesus demonstrated in public, the composure that Jesus demonstrated in public, the poise that Jesus demonstrates in public, then we must too wrestle in private in the Father's presence. And you know, the fact of the matter is that Jesus promises you and I these same 2 things, peace and power. He promises peace and power to us. First, peace in John 14:27. Jesus says there, peace I leave with you. But then notice what he says, my peace I give you. What kind of peace should we be able to face the trials and storms and difficulties of life with? What kind of peace should we have when everything around us is falling apart, when everyone has turned against us, when our friends have forsaken us, when the lies are being shouted against us? What kind of peace should we have? We should have his peace. My peace, Jesus says, I'm giving to you. It's not the peace the world gives. The peace that's totally determined by the circumstances of your life and can be here in a moment and gone the next. No, I'm giving you the peace that the world does not understand. So don't let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. So Jesus promises to give us peace. He also promises to give us power. The 2 things, again, that we see him having so much of in this crucial situation. In John 15, verses 4 and 5, he says to them, remain in me, abide in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. The power to produce, the power to have love, joy, peace, patience, all of the fruit of the Spirit, the power to be fruitful in difficult circumstances comes as a consequence of remaining in Him. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. There will be power in your life, but He warns us, apart from me, you can do nothing. So we are promised by the Lord peace and power if, and only if, we abide in Him. But where are we going to find Him? We're going to find Him in the secret place. We're going to find Him in the same place that He went to when He needed peace and power. And so by the ruthless elimination of hurry, by the daily habit of slowing and seeking and knocking and searching and asking, and seeking moments of silence and solitude in the midst of all of the noise, we will find the secret place where Jesus gives peace and power. I love the way Dallas Willard describes all of this in one of his writings. He says, the first and most basic thing that we can and must do is keep God before our minds. I love that. Isn't that true? Isn't that what we need more than anything else? First and foremost and most basic is to keep God before our mind. This is the fundamental secret in caring for our soul. Our part in practicing the presence of God is to direct and redirect our mind constantly to Him. In the early part of our practicing, we may be challenged by our burdensome habits of dwelling on things less than God. Isn't that the truth? But these are habits and not the law of gravity, and therefore can be broken. A new grace-filled habit will replace the former ones as we take intentional steps for keeping God before us. Soon, our minds will return to God as the needle of the compass constantly returns to north. If God is the great longing of our souls, He will become the pole star of our inward being. Now, I think most of us can't imagine a life in which there is this constant turning and returning of our attention toward God. But I think what we could do is just think about starting where we're at. Could you give God your attention for 5 minutes? Maybe that's shooting too high in some cases, maybe 2 minutes. It's amazing when you lean into what God is calling us to do, what He can make of a little. You remember the story of feeding a multitude, 5,000 with 5 loaves and a couple of pickled fish. If we'll give Him the attention that we can give Him, and you think, well, I can't do that. I cannot imagine a day filled with a focused attention on God. I cannot imagine praying all night long. I can't imagine spending protracted periods of time in the secret place in the presence of God and keeping a Godward focus. I don't think I could do that. Well, let me ask you tonight, do you think you could run a marathon? If I said tomorrow, or we'll just make it Saturday. Saturday, we're going to show up early here at the building and we're all going to go run 26.2 miles. And my guess is there's probably at least one runner in the building that says, yeah, I think I could do that. Most of us would be like, there is no way on this earth I could run a marathon on Saturday. But could you run around the parking lot? We'll keep it simple. And I think most of us would say, yeah, I could run around. I could make a lap around the block if I jogged really easy. And it's not a matter of what we could do. It's a matter of training. Notice what he uses here, the language of our practicing. Early in the part of our practicing, we may be challenged by our burdensome habits of dwelling on things less than God. But when we practice meditating on God and on his word and in prayer, and we give him the little bit that we can do, and we start practicing. Just like the person who can only run a block today, in a week can run 2 blocks, in a month can run 6 blocks, in 6 months can run a 10K, and in a year could actually go from the couch potato to a marathon. So could the child of God who wants more than anything else the peace and the power that comes from the presence, from practicing the presence of God. And if we think about our longing for heaven, we need to start practicing now. And I hope that, especially as we get to our lessons on Sunday, we're going to begin to realize that, there really is no better place. If I understand what it's like to be in the presence of God, there is no place I'd rather be. But we got to start practicing because, yes, our minds do have this burdensome habit of focusing on lesser things. So I hope that tonight, as we bring this in for a close, that you don't, it's like lessons on evangelism. Prayer's the same way. It's like you feel guilty. I know I ought to do this. I'm not trying to push you into the secret place. I'm trying for us to see the beauty, the power, the wonder of the secret place and let it pull us into it. The world, the flesh, and the devil has an agenda for you. And if you're honest, you feel the pull of that agenda. And if you've reached my age in the Christian walk, you know countless companions who have once traveled the road that you are on, who have been overwhelmed by the pull of the world, the flesh, and the devil. And they no longer walk the path at all. And Satan wants nothing more than the same thing for you. To keep turning your mind on lesser things than God, so much so that it's not even that you have a struggle keeping that focus there, but that it's almost like it never happens. We are always under the influence of some spirit. And our minds are directed and influenced by so many different things. And the one thing that it seems that we for sure have the free will to do is to determine what we're going to give our attention to. And we need to give our attention to God. We need to seek him in the secret place. It may be that even someone tonight feels like their attention has been pulled aside so much and they have been led down a path like Peter, who's so full of self-confidence said, I will never deny you. Has found yourself like him, sifted as wheat by the enemy. And you feel like you're coming unraveled, coming apart, coming undone. But the good news is that the same one who told Peter, I've prayed for you, and when you have returned, there's one who prays for you. There's an advocate who is right there in the bosom of the Father, who is very nearest to the Father's heart. And his affection is set upon you. He cares for you, and he prays for you. He never ceases to pray for you. So why don't you come near to the heart of the one who has a heart for you and is in the heart of the Father? He'll lead you, he'll pull you away from the lesser things of this world and its allurements and its useless idols, and draw you ever closer into the place that you need to be, to find the peace that you need and the power that you need to live a godly life. Maybe that there's a husband here tonight who knows that your wife needs you to find the secret place. It could be that there's a wife here whose husband needs you to find the secret place. Children whose parents need a mom and dad who abide in the vine. Whatever your situation is, if you have wandered, if you are feeling weak, if you are feeling the pull of the world, the flesh, and the devil, and you're on the ropes, there is hope. There is a better way. You don't have to live like that anymore. You can come to him. We can make this a secret place for you tonight. And in such a short time, I've come to be 100% confident that I can say that if anyone were to come forward tonight and say, I need help, that this is a group of brothers and sisters who would come around you and support you and encourage you in that endeavor. So if that's where you are tonight, we invite you to come. We invite you to come if you've never put Christ on in baptism to begin that journey. And if you have and you need the renewal, you need the strength that can come from confessing your faults and asking for your brothers and sisters' help. Then tonight's the night for you to do that. Why don't you come while we stand and sing for your encouragement?